You may not know this. Not everyone is poor because they earn little money. In reality, many people earn money. They work hard. They are not lazy. They are even smart. But then, year after year, they remain stuck in the same place. Not because they don't try, but because they never cross a single moment. That moment is when money is in their hands and they have to decide whether it will be used as a reward or as a seed. Most of us were never taught this. We were taught that if you work hard enough, you deserve to enjoy yourself. And so every time we are tired, every time we are under pressure, every time we feel we've tried hard enough, we spend money as a way to comfort ourselves. No one says that is wrong, but very few people tell you the price of it. The price doesn't come right away. It comes very slowly, quietly. And when you realize it, you are already too far to return to the old path. Today, I am not talking to you about how to make more money. I want to talk to you about an invisible line that divides people into two types. One type spends money on the present, and one type builds the future with very small decisions. At the end of this video, I will ask you one question, not for you to answer me, but for you to answer yourself. And if you answer it honestly, your financial life will no longer follow the same old inertia. There's one thing I realized quite late in my life. Money does not change people as quickly as people think. It only reveals how you have viewed life for a very long time. The same amount of money, the same level of income, yet some people move up and some people stay stuck in place. The difference is not in the numbers. It is in how you see money from the very first moment it is in your hands. For many people, money is a reward for exhaustion, for long working days, for moments when they feel they have endured enough. And I understand that. I have been there. You work all week. You are stressed. You are under pressure from responsibility, from expectations, from things that haven't worked out. Then the weekend comes, and you tell yourself, at least I deserve this. A good meal, a new item, a short trip to forget reality. Money in that moment feels like a hug. It soothes. It makes life feel a little easier to breathe. But very few people stop and ask, if every time I am tired, I use money to comfort myself, then what kind of person am I training myself to become? People who spend money are not bad people. They are simply people who live more in the present than in the future. They see money as something that exists to serve emotions right now. And the most dangerous thing is, that way of thinking does not hurt immediately. It is like eating a very good meal. You don't see the consequences that day. But if you eat like that every day, your body will answer for you. On the other side are people who look at money very differently. For them, money is not a reward. It is a tool, not a tool to show off, not a tool to compete, but a tool to build a future they have not seen yet but believe exists. These people are tired too. They are under pressure too. They also have moments when they want to give up and reward themselves. The difference is not in the emotion. It is in the reaction to that emotion. When tired, the spender asks, what should I buy to feel better? The investor asks, what decision today will make my burden lighter in a few years? One question points to the present. One question points to the future. And those two questions lead to two completely different lives. I observe this very closely. Not in books, but in real life, there are people whose income is not higher than others. But whenever money comes into their hands, they automatically separate it from emotion. They do not let the feeling of I deserve it decide everything. They let long-term goals speak first. Not because they are cold, but because they understand something very important. If money is always used to heal emotions, then emotions will always control your life. Investors see money the way they see a seed. No one holds a seed in their hand and demands it produce fruit immediately. No one gets angry at a seed because it hasn't generated returns after a week. They plant it, they wait, and they accept silence for a long time. Meanwhile, spenders usually live in a very different rhythm. They are used to immediate feedback: work, receive, try, enjoy. And when life does not reward them fast enough, they use money to reward themselves. Not because they are greedy, but because they fear the feeling of waiting. Waiting is a very rare skill, and it is not taught in school. Waiting means you have to believe in something that has not happened yet. Believe that what you are doing today will matter in the future, even when there is no clear evidence right now. That is why two people can start the same, but 10 years later, they stand in two different worlds. One person always feels they have tried very hard but are still lacking. Another person does not need to appear rich, yet their life becomes lighter and lighter. The difference is not in the initial income level. It is in the very small decisions repeated every time money appears in their hands. Spending money on the present always brings a very real feeling. Investing in the future brings only a vague belief at the beginning. And because of that, most people choose the easier path. They choose certainty. They choose what can be touched and used immediately. They choose the present because the future is too far away to feel. But time does not stand still. It stands on the side of those who know how to wait. Gradually, small spending accumulates into habits, and habits accumulate into a life with no breathing room. Meanwhile, silent seeds begin to work while you sleep. When you are tired, when you are not paying attention, spenders often ask, "Why do I keep working but still feel tired?" Investors rarely ask that question because they do not put the entire burden on their own shoulders. They let money work with them, slowly, quietly, but persistently. No way of thinking is formed in a single day. They are created from environment, from teachings, from what you see around you growing up. And believe me, if you were never taught to see money as a tool, then spending money as a reward is not your fault. But from the moment you realize this difference, responsibility begins to belong to you. Because from then on, every decision you make is no longer unconscious. And right here, a very important moment is about to appear. Not the moment you make more money, but the moment you choose not to spend, even though you absolutely could. That moment is not loud. No one applauds. No one knows, but it marks the deepest shift in how you see life. And that is exactly where everything begins to turn in a different direction. There is a truth that is very hard to accept, but the sooner you face it, the less you blame yourself. Many of our financial decisions are not made by reason. They are made by instinct. That instinct is not bad. It is just very ancient. Humans are programmed to seek immediate safety. When hungry, we look for food. When tired, we look for rest. When under pressure, we look for something to soothe us. And in the modern world, money becomes the fastest soothing tool. You don't need to wait. You don't need to explain. You just need to swipe. The feeling of relief comes immediately. It is no accident that spending money is so easy. It hits the deepest weakness of human beings. The desire to see results right away. We are used to do, receive, try, get rewarded. And when life does not give rewards fast enough, we create them ourselves, not because we are greedy, but because we are tired of holding on, tired of waiting, tired of trying without seeing anything change. In those moments, the future is a very distant concept. The present, however, is very real. The present has bills. The present has pressure. The present has the feeling of being left behind. And money at that point is no longer a tool. It becomes a painkiller without a prescription. No waiting, no permission needed. You just tell yourself, "I deserve it." That sentence sounds very humane, but if repeated too many times, It quietly shapes you into a very specific kind of person. A person who always needs comfort to keep going. A person who struggles to stay with discomfort long enough. And investing is staying with discomfort. Investing requires you to do the opposite of instinct. To plant today, but demand nothing immediately. No applause. No praise. No feeling of being rewarded. Only silence. And silence is something many people cannot tolerate. We live in a noisy world. Everything responds immediately. You press a button, the screen lights up. You send a message, you get a reply. So when you do something and see no response, you begin to doubt. Am I doing the right thing? Is it worth it? Am I making life harder for myself? This is where instinct starts pulling you back. It whispers, just this once. A little won't hurt. I'll invest later. And that later rarely comes. Because every time you choose comfort, you are training your brain to believe that discomfort is something to be avoided at all costs. But maturity, in the end, is learning how to tolerate discomfort without running away from it. There is an image I often think of when talking about this. Imagine you are standing in front of a slope. Going downhill is very easy. Just relax a little, and you slide down immediately. No effort, no thinking. But if you want to go up, everything is the opposite. You have to lean forward. You have to use force, and you will be out of breath. The irony is, the exhaustion of climbing up and the exhaustion of sliding down feel very similar. Both drain you. But only one path takes you to a different place. Many people say they are tired from trying. But deep down, they are tired from sliding. Sliding in spending. Sliding in habits. Sliding in how they respond to pressure. They are not standing still. They are moving just in a downward direction. Instinct does not care about your future. It only cares whether you survive the present. And in modern society, survival is no longer food or shelter. It is the feeling, I'm okay. I'm not that bad. I'm comforted. Spending money brings that feeling very quickly. Investing does not. Investing requires you to believe in a version of yourself you have never met. A calmer version, a version that does not need constant rewards to keep going. And that is why most people never truly cross the line. From spender to investor, not because they don't understand, but because they are not used to staying with emptiness when there is no immediate reward. That emptiness is very uncomfortable. It is like standing in a field you have just planted with nothing around you but soil and wind. No sign that you did the right thing, only belief and discipline. Many people quit here, not because they are poor, but because they were not prepared to face silence. They go back to spending money, not because they want to, but because it is the familiar path. And every time they go back, instinct is reinforced a little more. Until one day, they look back and ask, why do I keep working but never get better? That question hurts, but it comes too late. Unless another moment appears, a very small moment, very quiet. The moment when you are tired, you want to spend money, but you stop, not because you are stingy, but because you begin to see the game, that instinct is playing with you. And from that moment, everything begins to change. Slowly, very slowly, but in a completely different direction. Many people think that a turning point in life comes from something big, a large sum of money, a rare opportunity, a dramatic change. But the truth is different. The real turning point is often very small and very quiet. No one applauds when it happens. No one knows whether you have crossed it or not. Even you sometimes do not realize it. That moment often comes on a very ordinary day. No warning signs, no excitement. You just feel tired, tired like every other day. You have just received some money, or you were just about to spend an amount you can completely afford. There's nothing wrong logically. And then, right before you do the familiar thing, something inside you slows down, just a little. Not because you suddenly become wiser, not because you just read a good quote, but because you begin to see yourself in a very raw moment. You see yourself doing it, not because it is necessary, but because you want to feel better right now. And for the first time, you do not judge yourself for that. You simply observe, this moment is very fragile. If you ignore it, everything will return to the way it was. But if you stay with it long enough, you will realize something very important. You are not lacking money. You are lacking the ability to stay with discomfort. The turning point is not when you earn more. The turning point is when you do not do what you have always done. You do not spend. Not because anyone forces you, not because of fear, simply because you want to try a different reaction. For the first time, money stays in your hands longer than usual. And that feeling is not pleasant. You feel empty. You feel restless. You feel like you just missed out on something. This is the part very few people tell you. The moment you shift from being a spender to being an investor does not feel powerful. It does not make you proud right away. On the contrary, it makes you feel lacking the feeling of being rewarded, lacking familiar comfort, lacking the invisible hug that money used to bring. And because of that, many people turn back right here. Not because they do not understand, but because they did not expect the turning point to be this uncomfortable. There is a very clear image in my mind whenever I think about this moment. Imagine you are holding a seed in your hand. You are hungry, very hungry. That seed is edible. It will help you get through the hunger right now. But if you eat it, everything ends there. If you plant it in the ground, you will stay hungry for a while longer. No one promises it will grow. No one guarantees you will get anything. The turning point is here, not in the act of planting the seed, but in the decision not to eat it when you fully have the right to do so. Spenders eat the seed, not because they are foolish, but because the hunger is real. Investors plant the seed, not because they are certain, but because they accept the risk of waiting. And the moment you plant a seed for the first time, you do not become an investor immediately. You simply become someone who no longer reacts according to old instincts. That is a very big difference. You begin to realize that every decision not to spend money is a silent dialogue with yourself. One part of you says, "Come on, it's fine." Another part is quieter, but more steady. And you learn to listen to that quiet part. You do not win every day. You do not always do the right thing. But just once, you have proven to yourself that you can choose differently. That moment does not change your account balance much, but it changes how you see yourself. You are no longer someone completely driven by emotion. You are no longer someone who needs constant rewards to keep going. You begin to believe that you can tolerate discomfort without needing to run away. And that belief is very powerful. From here, things do not become easier immediately, but they become clearer. You start to see old patterns. Every time they appear, you are no longer surprised by yourself. You know that there will be moments when you want to go back, and you accept that. No self-blame, no self-hatred, just observation and choosing again. The turning point does not turn you into a new person overnight. It does only one very important thing. It shifts control from instinct to awareness. From here on, every decision you make has weight, not because it is big, but because you know what you are doing and why. And once you cross that moment, even just once, you are no longer standing in the same old place. You are on a different path, slower, less flashy, but it leads to a place that many people only watch from afar. After that turning point moment, many people think everything will become lighter. They think that once they have woken up, once they have seen the problem, the road ahead will hurt less. But the truth is the opposite. The turning point does not make life easier. It only makes everything clearer. You begin to see very clearly every time you want to return to the old path. You recognize every familiar excuse, every small whisper in your head. And right here, a word appears that many people do not like to hear. Discipline. Not discipline like the military. Not rigid discipline that punishes yourself, but discipline in small choices that no one sees. Discipline is when you know very clearly what will make you feel good right now, and you still choose what will make you lighter later. This sounds simple when said, but living it is not pleasant at all, because discipline always comes before freedom, and freedom always comes very late. Many people want financial freedom, but they cannot endure the stage where discipline has not yet brought any reward. They want to see results before they are willing to pay the price. But life does not work that way. Discipline is like waking up early while the whole world is still asleep. No one praises you. No one knows you woke up earlier than yesterday. Only you know. And sometimes even you are not sure what you are doing it for. In this phase, discipline does not bring a sense of nobility. It brings a sense of loneliness. You begin to be a little different. Not too much, but enough to realize you are no longer exactly like the crowd. You refuse a few things you used to always say yes to. You slow down in decisions you used to make very quickly. And this creates a very strange distance. A distance between you and your old self. That distance is not pleasant. It makes you doubt. It makes you ask yourself, am I overdoing it? This is when many people turn back, not because they lack determination, but because they did not anticipate the emptiness that discipline brings in the early stage. Discipline does not make you feel strong right away. It makes you feel lacking the feeling of being rewarded, lacking excitement, lacking familiar pleasures. And if you do not understand the nature of this stage, you will think you are going the wrong way. But in reality, you are going exactly the right way. There is one very important thing I learned after many years of observing. Discipline is not something you do to become a better person. Discipline is something you do to protect your future from the short-term decisions of the present. When you understand that, discipline is no longer a moral burden. It becomes a very practical action. You are disciplined not to prove anything. You are disciplined because you do not want to keep paying the old price. There are prices that are very quiet. You do not see them in a day, but you see them in 10 years. 10 years of working in exhaustion, 10 years with no breathing room, 10 years of always feeling like you are running, but not moving forward. Discipline today is the only way to trade for a lighter future. Not immediately rich, just lighter. Lighter in choices, lighter in pressure, lighter in fear. There is a big paradox here. Discipline feels restrictive at first, but in the long run, it is the only thing that creates freedom. Meanwhile, indulgence feels like freedom at first, but in the long run, it is the thing that binds you the tightest. Many people confuse these two feelings. They think freedom is doing what they want, but they forget that what you want today may be exactly the thing that takes away your choices tomorrow. Discipline does not require you to be perfect. It only asks you to be a little more consistent. Consistent in small decisions. Consistent in how you respond to exhaustion. Consistent in not using money to heal emotions whenever discomfort appears. There are days you do very well. There are days you fail. True discipline is not about never being wrong. It is about how quickly you return after being wrong. Spenders often give up. After one slip, investors return. After one slip, The difference is not willpower. It is how they view failure. For someone not used to discipline, one mistake means, forget it, this is not for me. For someone building discipline, one mistake simply means, I stepped off the path and I will step back on. No self-judgment, no self-punishment, just returning. This is a very important skill, and it is not glamorous. No one sees the times you return. No one knows how many times you struggled in very small decisions, but those moments are slowly creating something very different, a sense of control, not control over the world, but control over your own reactions. And when you begin to control your reactions, money no longer controls you the way it used to. It returns to its proper place. A tool, not a drug. You do not need to become extreme. You do not need to give up all joy. Discipline is not prohibition. It is proactive choice. You choose when to spend. You choose when to hold back. And most importantly, you know why you choose that way. That is when discipline begins to turn into inner strength, a very quiet strength, but very durable. And then one day, you will notice something very strange. The things that once required effort to refuse no longer attract you as much. Not because you got rich quickly, but because you changed how you see them. And that is the sign that discipline is working quietly, slowly, but in the right direction. Something very strange happens after you have kept discipline long enough. Not immediately, not in a few weeks, but after a long enough period that you almost forget what you were waiting for. You do not suddenly become rich. Your life does not suddenly change dramatically. From the outside, it is very possible that no one notices you have changed. But inside, a very quiet shift is taking place. At first, the difference is almost invisible. You still go to work, still feel tired, still have days when you wonder what you are doing all of this for. Others look at you and think, what has changed? And sometimes you ask yourself the same question. But time does not stand with the majority. It stands with small choices repeated long enough. There are two paths that look very similar at the beginning. Both make you tired. Both drain energy. Both give you no immediate sense of victory. They differ in only one very small point. One path lets you start over every day. The other makes yesterday a little less heavy than today. Spenders often live in a familiar loop. Each month is a new cycle. Income comes. Spending goes. And then, back to the starting line. There's nothing wrong if this happens only for a short time. But when it lasts too long, it creates a very dangerous feeling. The feeling that you are trying, but not accumulating anything. That feeling erodes very slowly. It does not knock you down immediately. It just makes you always feel tired. Tired without knowing why. Meanwhile, investors live in a different rhythm. Slower, less dramatic. But with one very important thing, they do not have to start from zero each time. Time begins to work with them. Not in a loud way, but in a very quiet one. The decisions to hold back yesterday make today a little less pressure. Not much, just a little. But that little adds up month after month, year after year. And this is where the difference begins to show. The longer spenders work, the more they feel they have to strain, because everything depends on present effort. If they stop, everything stops with them. Investors are different, not because they do not need to work, but because they no longer carry everything alone. Time becomes an ally. Money begins to work with them, even if very slowly, and that alone changes how they experience life. Spenders often live in a state of having to keep the pace. They do not dare slow down, do not dare make mistakes, do not dare rest too long, because they know that just one slip and everything becomes tense immediately, investors begin to have a very different breathing room. Not because they are abundant, but because they have a buffer. That buffer is not just money, it is calmness. When you have a buffer, you do not make decisions in panic. You do not have to choose what is most urgent. You can choose what is more right. And this difference becomes clearer over time. At first, just a few small choices. Later, opportunities you once did not dare touch, not because you are better than others, but because you are no longer backed into a corner. Many people underestimate the value of not being cornered. They think pressure is what pushes people forward. Pressure can make you run faster in the short term, but in the long term, it exhausts you. Investors do not run faster than spenders. They run more steadily, and steady running in a long race always beats sprinting and collapsing. There is a very interesting moment I have observed. Not when investors make more money, but when they are no longer pulled by things that once felt very tempting, invitations, trends, things that promise to make you less tired right away. Not because they look down on those things, but because they already have something else, inner stability. When you no longer need to use money to heal emotions, you see the world very differently. You do not need to prove, do not need to compare, do not need to chase. You begin to ask, does this really make my life better? Instead of, what is everyone else doing? And each time you choose that way, the distance between the two paths widens a little more. Not everyone notices this difference early. Many only see it after walking a very long way, when spenders begin to wonder why they are still straining at an age that should be lighter, when investors look back and realize they are no longer as afraid as before, not because they are certain about the future, but because they believe they have built a foundation strong enough to face it. Time does not turn people into different ones immediately. It only amplifies what is already there. If you live by reaction, time will amplify exhaustion. If you live by conscious choice, time will amplify calm. And then, one day, the difference becomes undeniable, not on paper, but in the feeling of living each day. Spenders wake up with the feeling that they must keep running. Investors wake up with the feeling that they can choose their pace. That is a kind of wealth very few people talk about. Wealth in choice, wealth in time, wealth in peace of mind. And it does not come from one big decision. It comes from hundreds of very small decisions that no one sees. If you are in the middle of the road and you feel everything is still slow, remember this. You are not standing still. You are letting time stand on your side. And when that happens, the rules of the game have already changed. At some point, after everything we have just talked about, I want you to stop, not to listen more, not to nod in agreement, but to truly be alone with yourself just for a few minutes. Because there are things that if you do not ask yourself, no one can answer for you. We have talked about money, about discipline, about time, about paths that look very similar at the beginning, but lead to very different lives. But all of those things eventually come back to one very specific moment. The moment money appears in your hands, not a large sum, not a life-changing decision, just the next amount of money. And right here, I want to ask you one question, not for you to answer me, but for you to answer yourself as honestly as possible. The next amount of money you have, will you use it as a reward or as a seed? It sounds simple. But if you stay with this question long enough, you will realize it is not easy at all. Because that question is not asking about money. It is asking about the person you are becoming. When you spend money as a reward, you are telling yourself, this present moment matters more than the future. That is not wrong. But if repeated often enough, You are building a life that always needs rewards to keep going. When you use money as a seed, you are telling yourself, I believe in a future version of myself. Not certainty, not guarantees, but enough belief to wait. This question does not have a right answer for everyone. There are stages in life when you need to spend money to survive. There are times when you need to comfort yourself so you do not collapse. The issue is not a single decision. The issue is the pattern. Are you using money to avoid uncomfortable emotions or to face them? Are you spending money because it truly brings value or because it helps you forget pressure for a moment? Many people have never stopped to ask themselves this. They just act on inertia, on habit, on what they have seen and learned. And then, as years pass, they wonder why their life always feels tense. This question is not here to make you feel guilty. It is here to wake you up. Because from the moment you start asking, you are no longer living purely by reflex. You begin to live by choice. Maybe today, you still choose to spend money. But the difference is here. You know what you are doing and why. And maybe one very near day, when you face the same choice, you will slow down a little. Not because you force yourself, not because you want to become someone else, but because you remember this question. The next amount of money, will it be spent or planted? The moment you pause to think, even for just a few seconds, you create a very small distance between you and instinct. And that distance is where freedom begins to form. Freedom is not having a lot of money. Freedom is no longer being pulled by unconscious reactions. Freedom is when you do not need to reward yourself. Every time you are tired, just to keep moving. Freedom is when you can tolerate short-term discomfort without panic. Very few people tell you this, but most financial struggles do not come from lack of money. They come from constantly pulling the future into the present in exchange for immediate comfort. And the future, each time it is pulled that way, shrinks a little more. This awakening question does not ask you to change your life in one day. It only asks you to be a little more honest in very small decisions. You do not need to become an investor immediately. You only need to become aware that every choice is teaching you what kind of person you are becoming. Aware that money does not just leave your pocket, it is going into building a very specific life. Maybe today you are not ready to plant many seeds, but as long as you do not eat all of them, you have already begun. And sometimes just holding back a very small part, not for profit, but for principle, is enough to change the trajectory. I do not know what stage you are in. I do not know how heavy your pressure is, but I know this. No one can build your future for you, and no one can spend it all except you. This question will not leave you when the video ends. It will show up in very ordinary moments. When you are tired, when you want to reward yourself, when you tell yourself, just this once, and every time you have a chance to choose again. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a very small choice, but a very real one. The next amount of money you have, will you use it as a reward or as a seed? No one grades your answer, but life does. Quietly, slowly, and very fairly. If you have stayed with me until here, I want you to understand one very important thing. This conversation was never really about money. Money is only a mirror. It reflects how you treat the present and how you believe in the future. Many people think they need more money to change their life, but the truth is often the opposite. They need to change how they make decisions, and then money begins to change with them. You do not become financially free on the day you make a lot of money. You begin to become free on the day you stop spending money to avoid your emotions. The day you can say, I am tired, but I do not need to use money to feel better. That is a very quiet strength. No one applauds it. No one recognizes it. But it changes how you move through life. I do not know what you will do with the next amount of money. Maybe you will still spend it, and that does not make you wrong. What matters more is this: you know what you are doing. You are no longer living entirely on inertia. You no longer let instinct pull you along without warning. And when you have that awareness, even for just a few moments each month, you have already gone much farther than many people. There's a quote by Jim Rohn that I always remember when talking about money and about life in general. Success is not something you pursue. It is something you attract by the person you become. You do not need to become someone else overnight. You only need to become someone a little more careful with your own choices. Someone who does not eat all the seeds. Someone who dares to wait. Someone who dares to endure short-term discomfort in exchange for a lighter life later. If in this video there was a moment where you saw yourself reflected, pause for a moment. And if you want, leave a in the comments, not to tell me, but to tell yourself, I was here, I listened, and I am thinking. If you feel conversations like this help you see your life more clearly, stay with me. We do not talk about getting rich fast. We talk about becoming a person solid enough that money no longer controls them. Subscribe to the channel, not for what you will get immediately, but for the person you are gradually becoming when you choose to think a little deeper each day. And before you leave, I want to leave you with the question that may stay with you long after this video ends. The next amount of money you have, will you use it as a reward or as a seed? We will keep talking in future videos, in very real moments. Thank you for staying with me until the end.